Broadcasting from New Braunfels, Texas, home of the historic Green Hall and the best river tubing in America. You're listening to PX1 Sports Radio, where we cover the hottest topics in the sports gaming world and the world of sports entertainment. Here's your host, Mike Peters.
What's up, guys? It is March 31st, almost the end of month number 3 here in 2017. April Fool's Day is tomorrow, so definitely have your senses about you, as somebody is likely to play some kind of prank. Usually online, you'll definitely see one, so definitely be prepared for that. Lots of stuff going on in the world of sports gaming right now. MLB The Show 17 just released last week, and I actually had planned to talk a lot about that this week, but something new has popped up that I wanted to talk about. And I don't know if it's really new, but I think it's worth discussing, and it's a very interesting subject in the world of sports video games. So hopefully you guys will find it appealing and listen. And I would really like for you guys to give your thoughts, if you're watching on YouTube or even if you're listening on iTunes, to go to Twitter or YouTube and comment and let us know what you think about this subject matter and how it relates to not only Madden, but the show, 2K, any of the games that we play. So my issue is I was watching there's a major series for Madden that they were streaming today, and they went with something that I thought was very cool and unique, which was a sideline view, more of a spectator view. And I thought it was great. You know, it's the exact same view that you see on Sundays and Saturdays when you're watching NFL and college football. And I've always thought that Madden should show the game in that way. However, there was a lot, just an enormous amount of hate and angst because of the camera view. And people hated it for the vast majority. There was very few people that if they enjoyed it, they did not say they enjoyed it. I was one of the few people that tried to say something, but it was very much what happens in the Madden community is a certain amount of people jump to one conclusion about something, and then the vast majority of them jump in line and kind of go that route. And I'm not trying to diminish the fact that people didn't like it, but it's one game. It wasn't even the biggest tournament. It's a major event, which is what they call it, a major. It's not it's not the Madden Championship. It's not even like the biggest names that were playing. I honestly haven't heard of either of the two guys that played. I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm sure they're great Madden players. But it was one game that they were trying something new, and I thought it was cool. I was like, hey, I actually like watching the game of Madden from a different view that's not the same as I play it. I like the broadcast view. I don't know that the camera was perfect. I'm not saying it couldn't, they can adjust it a little bit, make it a little bit better. It is kind of hard because the camera's basically going to be tied to the football, and wherever the football is where the camera is going to go. But it's very much like NFL and college football. And I thought it was great. And I thought it was something different. And I thought it was nice to try something new and put it out there and just show it from a different perspective. My issue is that the people that were complaining can't see that. And that's the thing that makes me the most upset about what happened. In that by halftime, if even that, they switched it and they went back to the regular camera angle, and where they have to cut out the plays. They try to change the camera angles and everything because they're trying to make it look like a real NFL broadcast. They're trying to look like a real broadcast in general, not just NFL. They're trying to make it look like a real broadcast and not show the plays as they're being picked and the arcadey game stuff that's in the game. And with the broadcast view, you can do that. You're not showing the plays and the recaps and the after play, that shows up on the screen. You're not seeing any of that stuff. And I thought it was cool. That was great, but that's not what people wanted to see. So they changed it back, and and then it's right back to what we see every week watching Madden, the same boring, mundane screen where we're watching them call plays and they're having to fight around it because it's not great, from a standard appeal. And the thing that I think bothers me the most about it, and this really honestly applies to the Madden community in general, and that's the one I can speak to the most. I'm not big into the 2K scene. I'm really into MLB the Show, but honestly, I don't really get on their forums. So unless my guys that I know in the Madden community are talking about the show, I don't really see what the people are saying about the show. So Madden's all I can really speak to, but it seems way different than any other community. And in that, it is an extremely self-serving community. And what you see on Twitter, and especially in this example, is it's all about me. And I know some of you are probably thinking, well, I buy the game and, I play for, I might play for money. I might spend hundreds of dollars, on MUT and stuff like that. So yeah, I want it to be about me. And I can understand the feeling. The problem is that view is extremely short-sighted, because what happens is what we're seeing this year with Madden is the me first attitude is going to come back to bite you. Madden sales this year, as of this point, now there's still roughly 6 months left to go before Madden 18 comes out. So I'm sure they're going to add some sales, but I don't think it's going to be significant, because if you look online, you look at Twitch, you look at YouTube, people are playing Madden way less than they have at any other point in this year. And I don't think all of a sudden, whether it's maybe the NFL draft helps a little bit, maybe the new rookies help a little bit, maybe the Madden championship events help a little bit, but I don't think it's going to offset, which as of right now is a 2 million sales deficit over Madden 16. They might add 500,000 copies in the next 6 months. I would think that would be high. I don't know. I've never followed it close enough to see, in the last 6 months of a dev cycle, how many copies are sold. But as of right now, Madden 17 has sold 2 million copies less than they sold all of Madden 16. That's a problem. If you're EA, if you're a developer that makes the game, if you're, an investor in EA, if you're a big wig at EA, but if you're a consumer of EA, that is a problem for you, because multiple reasons why that's a problem for you. A, there's not as many people to play with. You don't have as many people online to play against. You don't have as many people playing for as long online. So the pool of people that you can play with is smaller. I would venture to say you have less friends that are playing Madden. So even not only just playing online and playing against random people, you don't have as many people that you actually know and are close to that are playing the game. So that by itself is a bad thing for you, and that hurts you individually because you don't have as many people to play with. The second, and possibly the biggest part that why it's bad for you, is that means there's less revenue. And as much as people want to look at Madden or any other game and say, we can all do simple math and say, hey, if you sell 5 million copies at $60 a copy, it's $300 million. They're not all spending that money and putting it back into development. And if they lose 2 million copies at $60 a piece, well, that's what, now I just forgot my math, $120 million. So, that's a significant part of their development budget that now goes away, because typically, I would suspect, I haven't worked in game development or at EA or any other company like that, but if you just take it from a general business perspective, you're always planning your budget for the next year. And you're trying to figure out, okay, our growth from last year was this. If we can project at the same growth, this is where we're going to be. So this is what our budget is based on that projected sales numbers. And this is how we're going to spread that budget out. I would imagine that Madden, much like any other business, looked at last year and they saw a minimal growth, but it was some growth over the previous year, and projected out this year based on that growth. Losing 2 million in sales, that's a 25% drop from the nearly 8 million that they had the year before. Well, that's a significant, I mean, that's 120 million less in revenue than what they probably expected that they were going to get. And so that's going to change Madden 18. Now, they're potentially, and they probably already have, because obviously they didn't just wake up and say, oh, hey, look, we sold 2 million less copies. I mean, this has been something that they've seen since the first month the game was out, and it hasn't rebounded. So they're already making changes. They're not going to continue to spend money on Madden the way they did this year because they're making less money. Now, there's the possibility that they roll the dice and say, all right, we spent this amount on Madden last year and we lost money this year. We have to adjust something, but let's invest more than we normally would based on the sales, and let's invest it in this way, and this is to help drive sales. But likely it's not going to be 120 million. So it's going to be a hard spot for EA. Do they, well, actually not do they, how much will they cut back on Madden? When you have, I mean, a 25% loss in sales is huge. For you guys that don't understand business, have never owned a business, have never been in management of a business, that's a huge thing. Like, I would be interested to be a fly on the wall and wonder what's going on in between the walls at EA Tiburon. Like, what are the conversations that are going on there? What are they talking about? How are they going to change? They have 120 million less in revenue coming in theory. Again, well, it's going to change a little bit by the time Madden 18 comes out, but that's a significant amount of money. And they're not just going to say, well, we lost 100 million this year, so let's try it again and let's see if we win 100 million or lose 100 million again. So they're going to probably cut back somewhere. You would think. I mean, I would be surprised if they dedicated the exact same amount of money to Madden with the risk of losing $100 million again, because as we talked about before, it's a publicly traded company and there are investors investing in that company that want to see a return on their investment. And when you lose $100 million, that means they are losing money. Now, the good thing is there's other titles at EA like Battlefield and Mass Effect and all these other things. And Battlefield did amazingly well, but it's its own entity and they're not shipping money over to Madden, to help them out because they had a down year. So it's going to be interesting. But the point of it is, going back to what I said earlier, is that affects you personally. For the person that's out there saying, well, I want this and I want that for Madden, and it's only because of what is good for you, you are part of the person that is creating this situation. Now, I'm sure people follow me on Twitter and hear my podcast and read the things that I write and think that I'm all about me because I have very pointed views in the ways that I think certain things should work. But I will tell you with 100% certainty, my focus and my view for the game of Madden is always 100% what is in the greater good of the game. I happen to think that my personal beliefs are in the greater good, and I think that now seeing the sales numbers that further reinforces what my mindset has always been, that you have to build a great franchise mode and you have to build a very good CPU AI to bring people in, because people that don't want to play online want to have another way to play the game. And if your franchise mode and your CPU are not fun to play, people are not going to play. And to have a good CPU and a good franchise mode, I think you emulate real life as closely as possible. People want to play New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks that actually play like the New England Patriots and Seattle Seahawks. They want to feel what it's like to be a coordinator calling plays against Tom Brady. They want to see what it's like to be a quarterback throwing passes at Richard Sherman and trying to make those decisions. That's what you want to simulate. I get some flack from that sometimes because people think that, well, simulation, it's not the way that we should go, or that it's too hardcore or whatever. I don't know why people don't do it to some degree. I understand we can be a little crazy in our views, but I largely think that anybody that says that any sports game, because they all follow the same principle. There is no NFL Blitz. There is no MLB Slam or whatever that game was several years ago that was just kind of a cartoon version of MLB. There's no NBA Jam. There's one game for every sport except for Live, which is coming back this year, and PES and soccer. But they all, for the most part, are trying to simulate the real NFL or the real game. That their NBA is trying to simulate basketball. They give you options like the pro-ams and playing on the court. I forget what it's called. It's slipping my mind, but they give you options that are a little bit different that don't simulate the NFL, but their core game is trying to simulate the NFL or the NBA as closely as possible. Major League Baseball is trying to simulate Major League Baseball as closely as possible. They're made changes to the bunt system this year to make it so that it's not so easy to bunt, which was not representing real baseball. Their home run numbers and strike. They're trying to, every game out there is trying to simulate the real NFL. And that's always been my stance is with Madden, you need to do what every other sports game is doing and try to simulate the sport as closely as possible. With Madden, it becomes a little bit different because obviously there's a lot more things to it. There's so many plays that you don't have in other games, and it's far more complex. So I get it. It's a little bit different. But again, the point is, for those of you that are watching out there and you're screaming that you don't like something different, just it doesn't affect you in any way at all to sit and watch a game from the sideline. Like if your life is that tied up in a video game that a different camera angle for one afternoon is ruining your life, and I've saw that posted in the chat for this major series, there is something seriously wrong in your life. Like, seriously. I mean, get a grip here, okay? Like, your life needs to be more deep than having a camera angle change for one broadcast and your life is ruined. People saying that the game sucks and it's ruining their life and they hate it and having, saying these awful things to developers, like you need a serious check on your life if these things are creating, like you got to find some other hobbies, you need to find some new jobs, you need to find a girlfriend or a boyfriend or something. Like that's a problem, okay? But again, I don't want to go off course. The point of the matter is back to this me first attitude in the community that's affecting us. And we saw it very much today. These people, and again, it kind of goes along with it. Oh, my life is ruined. I don't like this. I hate this. And they throw a fit. It's this entitled generation that we live in. And I'm not going to point at millennials and say it's just millennials. It's our country to a large degree, but there's a sense of entitlement that's all about me. And if I don't get what I want, I'm going to yell and scream and whine and throw a fit. And eventually somebody is going to want me to shut up and they're going to give me what I want. And as long as we keep catering to that, we're going to keep getting what we're getting. Madden, to a large degree, has taken that approach. The people that scream the loudest and have the biggest voices on Madden get the changes that they want, which is why a lot of the guys in the sim community say that they nerf the game and stuff like that. And largely, I understand it. From a business perspective, you have to cater to your consumer base. If you're not, you're going to lose them. However, the problem with Madden is there's such a diverse consumer base that the people that don't really have the best interests of Madden in mind are the people who are the most vocal. Outside of me and very few others in the community, I see those guys. That's part of the reason why I'm so vocal and I try to do things like podcasts and I'm on Twitter. And I think some people think I'm just a lunatic and I need to shut up and they don't want to listen to me. And that's fine. But the problem is the devs are seeing hundreds of thousands of these guys out there that have no idea what real football is, don't care about the NFL game, only want to see what's best for themselves. And they're out there screaming at the devs to make these changes. And the devs are listening to them because there's nobody else out there to counteract that. If you're a sim gamer and you are complaining about the way the game is played and the way you experience Madden, then you need to be out there not being a raving lunatic, but out there talking to the devs on Twitter, which is the number one place to find them, and need to be shouting from the mountaintops in a professional, constructive, mature dialogue what you want to see in the game. And you need to get every friend that you have, every person in the league that you're playing in, every person that you know that shares your views, any person that doesn't play Madden anymore because they have a certain view, and you need to get them all on Twitter and get them yelling towards the devs, not at the devs, not screaming at them, not being hateful toward them, but being constructive and shouting out and drowning out these other people. Because I think the devs know what the way to go. The problem is you have this corporate hierarchy, and you have these investors, and you have people in upper management that are trying to answer to those people that are coming down saying, hey, all I'm seeing on Twitter and all I'm seeing on Reddit and all I'm seeing on our forums is that they hate these things, and we need to change these things. But the problem is those are all the people out there that are only me first and not looking at the greater interest of the game, and they're impacting change that is bad for the game. They can't take one day to change the view on Madden and just sit back and enjoy it as something different, because they have to have their fix of what they want in that moment. They can't say, hey, let's try it out and see if we get new people in today. Hey, maybe you don't watch it today. That's okay. Let's see what happens. Let's give people a different perspective, because honestly, that mode is something that a lot of us thought was something that was coming in Madden several Maddens ago. It might be coming in Madden 18 as a separate view for people to watch the game, where you're not seeing the plays getting called and you're not seeing the way the plays are developing. You're just watching the game like it is on Saturday and Sunday. And it was cool. I wanted to watch I was actually going to sit and watch one of these competitive Madden games, which normally drive me crazy because I'm tired of seeing the same plays and the same formations over and over again, but it was giving me a different way to watch the game. But all these other kids just wanted to raise, and largely they're kids, let's just be honest there. They all wanted to raise up and scream at the rooftops, I don't like this, me, you change it. And they listened, and they did. And this is exactly why everything that gets changed in the game happens the way it does, because these kids, these people that are out there that are entitled and want what they want and don't care what anybody else wants, don't care what's better for the game, don't care what's in the best interest of anything other than themselves, are out there on every social media platform out there screaming that they want these things. And the rest of us that want something different and want it to reflect real life gaming are just sitting back and letting them do it. And that's why we are in the situation that we're in. Now, then part of that is, how do we change it? And that's the part that I don't know if we have enough time, because I try to keep these podcasts to 30 minutes. I don't know if we're going to be able to cover everything. But having said all that, what we have to do now is we have to stop and say, okay, this is the reality of what it is. There is a very large portion of the community who I will say is going to buy the game anyway, because they're still watching the game right now. The vast majority of people who bought the game are not playing the game anymore. So why we're listening to these people that are screaming and ranting and raving over watching competitive Madden when they either aren't playing the game themselves or they are and are going to buy it anyway, I don't understand. I know you can make the point that, hey, I buy the game anyway, and I'm still playing it, so I'm that same person, but I'm also not screaming me. I'm screaming, hey, let's try something new. Let's try a different camera angle. I thought it was great. I'm screaming, what's in the best interest of Madden? I'm perfectly understanding of there are other people out there other than Sim, and we have to find a way to balance it. But unfortunately, in this community, there is no sense of compromise. It's all about me. I'm either a Sim game, this game needs to be 100% Sim, and everybody else needs to change their way of thinking, or it's the competitive mutts online crew that's like, hey, we like the exploits and we want to be able to go out and play with one play the whole game and win, and that's that. Like, there is zero people on either side of that conversation that are coming, hey, let's come together and let's find a way to work in the middle. I won't say none. There are a few. I think I'm one of those people. I think Zan is one of those people. I'm sure there's a few other people out there that I don't know that are probably that fit that mold. But it's very, very, there's like a handful of people that have that mindset. It's so much competitive, online or Sim, and that's it. And they're just on opposite sides of the fence, and they're barking at each other, and they all want what they want, and nobody wants to compromise, and nobody wants to do anything to find what's best for the game of Madden. And how do we fix that? Personally, I think it's like anything else. I don't want this to become a political thing, but I think what we saw in the election this year kind of speaks to it. The country voted to change something. They voted for an outsider. They voted for something different. Now, regardless of whether you think it's working out or what your views on, that doesn't really matter. The point is that the country voted to change the way they were doing. They wanted an outsider. They wanted somebody different. And that's a hard thing to do. And maybe, unfortunately, it wasn't, a great situation. We haven't experienced great pluses on either side, whatever angle you want to take there. But I think the change in the Madden, you kind of have to do the same thing. You're going to have to take an outside approach. You're going to have to do something. You're going to have to think outside the box. And with Madden, it's the hardest thing because, again, it's a publicly traded company and they're all about sales and they have to make money and they have to represent profits to their investors. I mean, that's the way it's going to be. If you think that it's different, you don't like that, you have to come to grips with it because that's just the reality of the situation. That's the way it's going to be. To change it, though, they're gonna have to learn, and they might this year. You know, I would love to see the conversations that are going on now because they haven't had a year like this since the late 2000s when the recession hit and the online kind of took off, and they went from selling 12 million copies in 06, if I have my numbers right, and then it went down to like 6 million copies within 3 or 4 years. It was a huge decrease. We haven't seen this kind of drop in sales in many, many years. So they have to be scrambling. I mean, something drastic is going to change in Madden this year. I don't know what, because they can't leave the sales here. They have to rebound. I think the Frostbite engine is going to change some things. You can look at FIFA and see some of the things they did. I'm sure we're going to get some of that Madden, a single player story mode probably. Hopefully a revamped franchise mode, which will draw some people in. Maybe a new mode of something we don't even know about. Competitive co-op play is something that's been talked about, although I think that's just going to break the game worse, but we'll see. It's something that a lot of people complain about. It's going to be really hard to adjust for 2 people out on the field breaking the game versus just 1, but we'll see how it goes. But something's got to change drastically, right? And I think that we need more people out there like the Zans of the world that play competitively but understand the sim community and want the game to function on a level that is appealing to both perspectives, but also represents the real life football. And we need more people out there. We need more people in the sim community out there counterbalancing the me first online guys that are crying that, hey, we want to see the cheese. We want to see, we want to see all the plays develop. We want to see what they're doing. I get it to a degree. It's competitive and you're seeing that, but it's a very unique situation. And, I don't want to get too far off base here, but how do we go about changing that is what the developers have to figure out this year. It's such a fractured community and there's so diehard people on both sides of it that have their opinions that I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to think about it and I'll probably put up a blog post on the forum to expand upon my ideas on it. But I think the first thing that everybody's going to have to do, and unfortunately, this is probably something that EA is just going to have to take a gamble on and kind of force it to happen because I don't think it's going to happen naturally. Basically, what's happening is all of these people that are screaming and wanting the game to be nerfed and wanting things to change and not wanting the game necessarily represent NFL football are not NFL fans. To a large degree, they might watch the game, they might watch their favorite team, but really they probably watch one game a week, if that, and then they play Madden, and they're not hardcore soccer fans, like the people that play FIFA. I would largely say that the majority of the hardcore people that play NBA 2K are hardcore NBA fans. Like, they watch a lot of basketball. Madden fans, I guarantee you, they may watch one NFL game. The average Madden hardcore guy, a hardcore guy that's out there screaming, that's still playing Madden, and that's one of these big... I bet they watch one game. They watch their favorite team. They might catch a Sunday night or a Monday night game here and there, but largely they're not diehard football fans. And that's part of the problem. So how do you fix that? And again, I think it goes back to what I've been saying for the last several years. A lot of the guys saying, you have to roll the dice and you just have to put in things that represent real football, things that are going to offset a lot of the junk that you see online. You see the nickel 2 blitz every year. There's some kind of exploit that's found, and it's magnified in competitive Madden. And honestly, I think that's hurting the game. I really do. I think competitive Madden is good in a degree. I think it gets people watching. I think it's an added revenue stream potentially. You get advertising dollars or whatever. But I think all the flaws in the game are magnified on such an extreme level in competitive Madden that it's hurting the game. This is the biggest year of competitive Madden and also the worst possibly sales year for Madden in 10 plus years, maybe 15 years. Like, that says something right there. The people that are buying Madden are not buying Madden to play like you see play competitively. That is an extra option, but it is not the reason people are buying the game. So I think you have to, and this is the hard thing. I know Rex and Clint, they're hardcore sim guys, and they want to make the game represent real life as closely as possible. If this is not an indication that, your biggest year in competitive Madden is also your worst sales number, if that is not an eye-opening thing that says, hey, we can't cater to these guys anymore, I don't know what is. I know it's not as simple as that. I know there's other factors. I know franchise mode needs to be better. I know they need a single-player story mode, which every other game has. I think they need an additional option, more things to play outside of just, franchise and online. I think all those things will help. Honestly, I think those will probably affect the sales more than anything. But at its root, competitive Madden is not going to sell more copies. I don't know what MUT numbers are. That's the one thing we don't know. Maybe MUT's been doing great this year, and they're like, well, our sales are dwindling, but MUT's killing it, so let's just keep focusing on MUT and competitive Madden. And, if we only sell 3 million copies, oh well, as long as we're selling more MUT packs and we're getting more revenue from competitive Madden. I fear, tragically, that that's what they're thinking. I don't think they'll actually go that route. I think it just doesn't make sense logically from a business perspective. You're far more better off selling 10 million copies and having 5 million more people that are potentially going to pick up MUT and spend money on MUT than you are, having 5 million people that are largely focused just on MUT. Because those people are just going to spend the same anyway. You will need that other 5 million people, because then maybe 1 million of them spend money on MUT and you're increasing your revenue. But we'll see. Again, how do we fix it? I think you have to roll the dice, and you have to commit to putting a better product on the field. I will give a shout out to NY Kia, who is on Twitter a lot, and he watches a lot of these games, and he's tried to get in the top 100 and ranked, and he says it very often, and many times when he would say it, I'd kind of be like, I agree with you, but I'm not sure it's as impactful as, he means it when he says it. But now, looking at the sales numbers, looking at things like today, he's 100% right when he says it's not a good look when you turn on competitive Madden. And it's not. It is. You look at the chat, and it's just screaming kids. No regular person that doesn't tie their self-worth to Madden logs on to watch a competitive Madden game, looks at the stream chat going on, and says, I think these are my people. I want to stick around. They don't. I don't know the solution to that, because you can't, there's so, like, it was ridiculous at one point. Everybody was just typing in like a string of 10 or 15 question marks. And it was just nonstop incessant. It's just hundreds of guys just doing the same. Just come on. That's just such immaturity there. So I don't know how you fix that, right? Part of it is, I think you have to quit catering to them. It's kind of like a kid, and I'm not a parent. I've been around people, and I can only judge by what I've seen. But right, if your kid is always crying and screaming, you can't keep giving them everything they want, because then you're just teaching them that the more they whine and cry, the more to do it. If I whine and cry, I'm going to get what I want. So that's what I do. And a lot of people parent that way, and it's unfortunate, but you read any kind of psychological book, parenting blogs and stuff like that, which I do because at some point I plan on being a parent. You can't constantly cater to them. You have to set boundaries, and you have to say no. And I know it's different with an online game, but at some point you're just gonna have to tell them, like, look, you don't like it, shut up, play the game, or just don't respond to them. And people criticize Madden and other game developers to some degree by not being online as much, and I think maybe being online as much as they are kind of hurts them, because when you're on it and you interact as much, you see all this stuff, and it's hard just to turn around and not say anything, right? And I think they do a pretty good job for the most part, but they're still on there, and so more people are interacting with them, and they're spitting this hateful vitriol and all this other stuff, and I think it makes it hard just to say, all right, I'm not going to listen to you. But I think they have to. I think you have to say, okay, this is what is best for the game. These are the things that we did when the game was at its best, and this is what we're going to go. And you got to commit to it full on, 100%, no questions, no changing it a month in. Just, okay, we're going in this direction. We're making this represent NFL, which is what we paid for the license, and we're not going to change it because you're crying. And just let them cry. And just like today, granted, you're always about sales numbers, right? And if your viewership's down because people don't like it, and then you change it, your viewership goes up, well, I guess they were right, so you got to go with what they want, right? Sometimes you got to sacrifice short term for the benefits long term. And you have to take that mindset and just say, look, we're not going to keep listening to you. We're not going to keep changing it. This is what we want. This is the direction we want to go. This is what we want to make the gameplay look like, or this is what we want to make franchise look like. This is what we want to make competitive Madden look like. This is what we want to make this mode, whatever. This is what we're going to do it. We'll take your feedback, and if it falls in line with what our views are and we can adjust it because there's a bug or this isn't working correctly or this is impacting the average user's gameplay and turning them off and might be something that might make them not want to buy the game, then you go with it. But to say, wow, all of these guys are just complaining because they don't like what they see and they don't see the biggest picture, we can't do that anymore. I think another thing, and we'll wrap this up here as I know we've gone over the 30 minutes. Another thing we have to have is we have to have more leaders in the community that are stepping up and trying to bridge this gap. And we have to have less, and I speak for the sim community, or speak to the sim community on this, because I can relate and understand the competitive side, but at the end of the day, I think the best thing for the game is to represent the game of NFL football as closely as possible when you're watching it on the field. And I think you see that from the sales numbers. I mean, viewership might be up, but sales numbers are down. So people aren't tuning in and watching competitive Madden and deciding whether they're going to buy the game or not. They're watching YouTube videos. They're talking to their friends, and that's what's making them decide. They're looking at reviews, stuff like that. So competitive Madden's great. I think it's a nice avenue. I think it's something that's cool, but honestly, it's a very small percentage of the people that play and not having a significant impact on the sales of the game. If anything, I think it's hurting the game. So we need more of the sim community to step up and voice their ideas in a constructive, positive manner and show examples of why this makes it better, and to stand firm and hold the developers accountable for the things that they do. And I know when I talk about devs, a lot of people think Rex and Clint. I'm not just talking about Rex and Clint. I'm talking about Christian McLeod, who's over the commentary. Franchise mode largely got left out of commentary updates this year. We weren't very vocal in it, and so they can cater to the online guy. And the commentary is great. It blows away anything out there, but I would have liked to see more things improve in franchise mode, and they didn't really largely cater to us, largely because we're silent. John White, who's over the franchise mode. There's a few people out there that would say things to him on Twitter, and largely it was the same few of us that were tweeting at him all year. Need more people out there tweeting at him and giving him ideas and giving him feedback and saying what you want and making videos and stuff like that, trying to enact change. Obviously, Clint and Rex are on Twitter all the time, so it's easy to reach out to them, but we need more sim guys. But the thing we can't do is we can't stand on the other side of the fence. We can't point at the other guy and say, no, you suck. This way is right. It doesn't matter what you want, because that's not true, and that's not helpful for anybody. I know some people probably think that about me, and it's not my intent. I mock things. I'll be honest. I mock things that I see in the competitive community that don't make a lot of sense, and then I think hurt the game in general. When people complain about not ever wanting to drop an open pass, never wanting to overthrow an open receiver, don't want CPU players to make sacks or strips or fumbles or any of that stuff, that's the stuff that I mock, because it's an 11-on-11 sport, and there are 10 other players on the field other than the one you're controlling, and they're going to be there. They're going to block for you. They're going to run routes for you. They're going to make tackles for you. They're going to make sacks for you. They're going to swat passes for you. And yes, they're going to intercept and cause fumbles and all the other stuff. So I think you have to have that to simulate the game. I don't mock those ideas because I think I'm better than those people. I do think that I have the best interest of the game held over those people. Largely, those people think only in perspective of what's good for them, which is, I'm a competitive player. I'm competing for tens of thousands of dollars. This is what I want. This because I think this gives me an edge in that game. But that does not give Madden the edge in the overall scope of the video game world. Okay, and that's where I think. And if there's any competitive guys who are listening to this, I want you to take that to heart and say, all right, let me reevaluate what I want. I get it. You're playing for a lot of money, but understand, Madden gave you that opportunity for money. You did not build that for Madden. They gave you that opportunity. So you need to do what you can do to help Madden, and, going out there and posting videos on how to break the game is not helping Madden. showing up and playing competitively, as we see in sales numbers, is not helping Madden. What's helping Madden is making a game that appeals to the largest portion of players, which is going to give you more people to play against, which can give more eyeballs viewing you, which is going to help you make more money. And again, it's such a short-sighted, individualistic, me-first attitude that is hurting the game, I feel. And those people need to take account of what they're wanting, and they need to say, all right, this not outside of me, what's not best for me, what's best for the game, what's best for the guy that plays franchise mode that doesn't want to play competitively, what's best for the new kid that's just joining who doesn't want to learn how to run one play over and over again to win because he doesn't care about being a ranked player or having people think that he is cool because he can beat a lot of people. What is best for the online league that plays together? What is best for the 30-year-old dad who only gets to play for 1 or 2 hours a week? And, what is going to make his experience the best? That's what's best for everybody. I think the sim community takes those guys in. However, I will say this for the sim community, we have to take a step back and realize when we're claiming that we want the game sim and just saying it doesn't represent real-life NFL football, we have to take it into a broader scope. And we have to ask ourselves a lot of those same questions. Okay, when we're saying we want these very complex blocking schemes, ask yourself if you think the vast majority of people playing understand those things and if they're going to care if they're in the game or not. Because I think as a sim community, we lose a lot there. Because the vast majority of the people don't care. 90% of the people playing the game don't understand those concepts and don't care. I do, and I want to experience them more, but there is a point where you can overcomplicate things and make it too hard and you turn off your average user. So when you're out there, asking for, the function this way or these zone combos to work in a certain way or the coverages and blocking and all these different things, ask yourself, not is that good for me because I'm a high-level football scholar, I'm a coach, or I'm a high-level player or whatever, but ask yourself, okay, does the average guy, does my buddy that doesn't know anything about football like me but likes Madden, will he want this feature in the game? That's what we got to ask ourselves. So, and it's going to take on both sides. And unfortunately, it's going to take leaders on both sides. I try to be that in the sim community. There's other guys out there like the Sim Standard crew, NYKia. Zan's kind of on the teetering both lines as he plays competitively, but I think he also has a very good sim mindset and wants to see the game more sim. I think a lot of these competitive guys need to open their eyes, like Problem and Serious Mo and Dubby and Sardoni. All of these guys out there, they need to take a step back also. And we need to have guys on both sides, YouTubers out there, guys like Toke Nasty and QJ Beat and, all these guys out there. Everybody needs to take a look at themselves and look at the game as a whole and say, what is going to be in the best interest? Not only what things can help me, but can these things help me and help other people? And if there's something that's so unique and specific to me personally, can I adjust my views on those? Because in the greater good, if you're a Madden competitive player, or if you're a YouTuber, or if you're a sim guy, having more people playing the game and funneling more money into the game is better for all of us long term. And that's where we all got to adjust our mindset, and we all got to think from that angle, and we got to present those views to the devs from that angle so that we can make Madden the best game on the planet for everybody, so that more people are playing it and we can have more ways to experience the game and have fun playing the game. That's all I got for today. That went way longer than I intended it, but I had a lot to say, and I'll probably follow up with it with a blog post at some point, so definitely be sure to check out px1sports.com, and obviously, find me on Twitter. Let me know what you think. Post your comments on YouTube. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. You don't see me kind of unplugged, so to speak, like this, but maybe it's a different aspect. I am an opinionated guy. Maybe this is something that I need to do more often, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys get something from it, and I'm definitely looking forward to hearing your comments in the days and weeks coming forward. Thank you for listening to another episode of the PX1 Sports Radio Podcast. For more, you can find us on Twitter at PX1Sports or online at px1sports.com. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.